We are 3 weeks away from the start of the 2023 NFL Draft. It's all mock drafts all the time. He's Paul Dottino. I'm John Schmeelk. If you're on the internet, doesn't matter what website you go to, there's a mock draft. So we're going to talk about a few of them here today. Let's go to ESPN first. Todd McShay, one of their great draft analysts, former NFL scout. Paul, he did a 2-round mock draft. And we have a couple different names that we haven't really talked about, which is good. So in the first round, he has the Giants taking cornerback Emmanuel Forbes out of Mississippi State. 6'1", great ball skills, 14 interceptions over the past 3 years, but he's 166 pounds.
Runs a 4.35, and of those 14 picks, 6 of them went back for touchdowns. Talk about production. The guy just gets it done. But you're looking at a guy who, soaking wet, is going to be about as heavy as a box of Kleenex tissues.
And if you watch him, like, his legs are really thin. Like, you just watch him at the combine, he looks skinny.
He is a string bean. And so that is going to cause trouble no matter who you talk to. The first thing they're going to say is he's going to have to put some bulk on. But there is no doubt about his production and his skill set. Did play about a fifth of his time in the slot when he was in college.
All right, and then the second guy that Todd McShay has going to the Giants with their second-round pick in the 50s is Josh Downs. We've talked a lot about Zay Flowers, Paul, the 5'9" wide receiver out of Boston College, who people have going to the Giants in the first round. Well, Josh Downs isn't that much different. Same size, 5'9", very athletic, smooth, really good hands, and he had back-to-back 1,000-yard receiving years for North Carolina.
Has terrific hands, has really good quicks, runs really good routes. I want to give you one stat about his production. 22 touchdown catches in 28 games.
Hey, the guy gets open.
I mean, he finds a way. But here's the other stat that might concern you just a little bit. For a guy who's so quick and so explosive, he only averaged 12 yards a catch.
Not a big yards after the catch guy.
So there will be some people who will look at that and they may shy away.
Yeah, maybe a slot-only guy, too, which is, Giants have on the Robinson. We'll see what they decide to do with that. All right, let's go to NFL.com, our buddy Lance Zierlein, and you can check out Lance on the Giants Huddle podcast on Friday. That'll be posting up. Had a nice half-an-hour conversation with him about the draft. And, Paul, he is the Giants going with Brian Branch, a safety/slot corner out of Alabama. Now, the knock some people have put on him is his 4.58 40-yard dash at the combine. But for that position, I think that's fine. And if you watch his tape, there's a lot of Julian Love in there if you watch him, to me.
But a guy who, as you look at his numbers, you're talking about 70% in the slot during the course of his college career because he can come down and handle that spot.
Good tackler.
Also played in the box 15% of the time. So when you look at his versatility, and obviously he can also play the standard safety spot, I just saw a guy who in a lot of ways reminded me of just a slimmer version of Landon Collins. But he's an Alabama guy, so why shouldn't he?
All right, let's go back to ESPN for our final mock poll. This is a 7-rounder, so we're going to go through this pretty quickly here. Jordan Reed, good friend of the program. Zay Flowers in the first round. We've talked a bunch about him, the 5'9" explosive receiver out of Boston College. Emmanuel Forbes in the second round. We already talked about him with Todd McShay's draft. Good. We can skip those. Now, in the third round, center Olu Oluwatimi out of Michigan, Paul. Basically won every offensive line award they have in college football. But there are some questions about how his athleticism will transfer over to the next level.
And specifically his technique, because if you don't have the great athleticism, your technique better be sharp. He will need to polish that up. So here's the only question about him, because I hear his work ethic, his ability to read things, very smart. He's got the power. He's got technique issues, a little bit less athleticism. But the other thing is, how good was that line? That cover up maybe some deficiencies that he had because the line itself was so good. How good is he individually?
All right, I want to touch on a couple other guys in Jordan Reed's draft very quickly here, Paul. Chandler Zavala out of North Carolina. You want a big bruising offensive lineman that can maul people? Here's your guy.
He is a mauler. He reminds me a lot of Ike Ekwonu, to be perfectly frank with you, when I look at him.
Not as athletic. Obviously.
Not as athletic. But in terms of his attitude, his power, his frame, his bulk, his sturdiness, not quite as athletic, but a guy who's very intriguing to me. Back surgery, though, forced him to miss 7 games in 2021.
Yep.
So that's a yellow flag that's got to be checked on.
All right, one other guy I want to bring up here, 2 fifth-round picks in the draft. Yasir Abdullah, the edge out of Louisville, was the second fifth-round pick, but the one I want to talk to you about is Chase Brown, the running back out of Illinois, Paul, because he ran on a sub-4.45 40 at the combine. 1,400, I think, rushing yards at Illinois this year. fantastic player, can do a little bit of everything.
Two-time 1,000-yard rusher, 5'10", 209 pounds is what they're listing him at. There's no question about his ability to be, at least at the very minimal, a rotational back in the league. I'm not sure he's a starter in the league, John, but I think he's definitely a rotational guy.
He was a bell cow at Illinois.
Yes, but I don't know if that's going to work up at this level.
The other guys they had in the draft, we won't talk about. I'll just list them for the fans out there. P.J. Mustipher out of Penn State. He was their 6th-round pick with Jordan Reed's draft, 3 7th-round picks. Ronnie Hickman, who's a safety out of Ohio State, who I'm surprised went to the 7th round. Marty Mapu, who's out of small Sacramento State. He's kind of a pass rusher, safety, linebacker type guy. And then Lonnie Phillips, an edge out of Kansas, the 3rd, 7th-round pick. So that's a look at some of the most recent mock drafts. We'll keep doing this up until draft week. It's just 3 weeks away. We'll see you then.